guys know how much I love the Fujifilm X100VI, and it's honestly one of my favorite cameras to shoot with. The classic design, the colors, the film simulations, it just has this charm that makes you want to go out and take photos. But here's the thing, as much as I love the X100VI, there have definitely been moments where I wish I could swap out the lens, maybe go a little bit wider when I'm traveling, or throw on a portrait lens, or just have more options like a zoom lens depending on what you're shooting. And that's exactly why I've been so curious about this, the new Fujifilm X-E5. Same sensor, same film simulation, same image quality that we all love, but unlike the X100VI, this one actually lets you change lenses. And when you pair it with Fujifilm's new 23mm f2.8 lens, which basically gives you the same 35mm full frame equivalent look as the X100VI, you end up with what honestly feels like an interchangeable lens version of the X100VI. But of course, there are some key differences between these two cameras, some pros, some trade-offs, and depending on what kind of photographer you are, one might make a lot more sense than the other. Hello, my name is Arissa, welcome to my channel, and if it's your first time here, I am a content creator and a beauty editor with Harper's Bazaar Singapore, and I talk a lot about tech, beauty, fashion, and occasional home content. But let's get straight into the Fujifilm X-E5. Let's start with image quality because this part's pretty straightforward. Both the X100VI and the X-E5 are running on Fuji's newest 40.2 megapixel back illuminated X-Trans CMOS 5 sensor, the exact same sensor in both bodies. They're also both using Fujifilm's X-Processor 5, so in terms of raw image quality, you're getting identical results. You got beautiful details, tons of dynamic range to work with, and excellent high ISO performance. And of course, you've got all the latest film simulations fully available on both cameras. You've got your classic chrome, your Reala Ace, your nostalgic negative, all your favorites. So whether you're shooting JPEGs straight out of the camera or working in RAW, the colors, the tones, you're gonna feel very familiar across both cameras. Now this is where things start to show in terms of differences. The autofocus. Both the X100VI and the X-E5 use Fujifilm's AI-powered subject detection autofocus system. This means they can recognize people, animals, birds, cars, motorcycles, planes, and even insects and drones apparently. Honestly, for most everyday shooting, portraits, travels, and pets, both cameras lock on really well. But because the X-E5 was released after the X100VI, about a year later, Fujifilm had a little extra time to refine the autofocus algorithms, and that's what I've noticed after using both of the cameras, is that the X-E5 is slightly more confident when it comes to fast-moving objects. The tracking feels a little bit more stickier, especially when subjects are coming towards you or moving erratically. In low light, it also just seems to hold on to focus just a little bit better when contrast starts to drop. But is there a massive difference? No, but if you are someone who shoots action or kids running around or anything with unpredictable motion, you will probably appreciate that extra bit of autofocusing on the X-E5. Stabilization is where things flip a little bit more in favor of the X-E5. The X100VI has in-body image stabilization rated up to 6 stops, which already helps a ton for handheld shots in low light, especially when you compare it to the X100V. But the X-E5 actually bumps that slightly up to 7 stops of IBIS at the center of the frame and around 6 stops towards the edges. In practical terms, it means you can push your handheld shutter speeds even lower and still come away with sharper shots. It's a little bonus, especially for those of us who like to shoot handheld as much as possible. On the video side of things, both cameras are really capable for hybrid shooters. You're getting 6.2K at 30p on both bodies with full subject tracking autofocus while recording, and excellent oversample footage that look crisp and detailed. Where X-E5 might have a small advantage is the heat management. Thanks to the IBIS design and how the internals are laid out, I found that the X-E5 tends to handle longer recording sessions a little bit better before things start to heat up. It's not a huge deal if you're mostly shooting short clips, but if you're recording longer sit-downs or vlogs, that's something that you need to keep in mind. Now let's talk build, because it is one of my favorite parts of both cameras. The X100VI with its built-in lens and all the extra component inside weighs about 521 grams. The X-E5's body by itself is 445 grams, but when you add on the new 23mm lens, you're looking at about 535 grams. So in terms of overall weight, they are pretty comparable. But what's really cool about the X-E5 is that it's the first X series body to feature a top plate that is fully machined out of a single piece of aluminum. It gives the camera a very solid and high-end feel without adding additional weight. The dials are satisfyingly clicky, and the EVF is positioned in that rangefinder style off to the side, and overall it's just a very refined, very familiar Fujifilm shooting experience. Speaking about the viewfinder, it is another aspect where both cameras just feel a little bit different. The X100VI has the famous hybrid viewfinder, which lets you toggle between optical and electronic views. If you love that classic OVF experience, it is really hard to beat the X100VI. The X-E5 doesn't have the optical option, it is EVF only, and you can't talk about the X-E5 without touching on lens flexibility. With the X100VI, you're locked into the built-in 23mm f2 lens. It's a great focal length for general shooting, and the lens has incredible character, and you've got your built-in anti-filter and leaf shutter, and these are all very nice features to have. But with the X-E5, you can swap lenses and tap into Fujifilm's entire XF lens lineup. And this new 23mm f2.8 lens is honestly a perfect match for this body. It gives you that familiar 35mm full-frame equivalent field of view, but in a super tiny package. It's just 90 grams, it's fully weather sealed and has a close focusing distance of 20 centimeters. And the autofocusing is silent and fast, and it's honestly quite beautiful to look at. But of course, if you want a wider, longer or faster lens, you can easily swap this one out for any other XF lens depending on what you're shooting for the day. And that freedom alone makes the X-E5 incredibly versatile and very compelling. So to sum it all up, with the X-E5, you gain slightly better IBIS, a bit more refined autofocus tracking, and full lens flexibility. And honestly, better availability right now if you've been struggling to get your hands on the X100VI. You do, however, give up the leaf shutter, the built-in anti-filter, and that hybrid optical viewfinder, which are some of the magical touches that make the X100VI so special to use. So it all comes down to your shooting style. If you want a beautiful all-in-one, pick it up and go kind of camera, the X100VI is amazing. But if you want that same Fujifilm image quality with the ability to adapt to different shooting scenarios as your needs change, the X-E5 might actually be the smarter long-term option. Alright, so that's the breakdown. Hopefully this has helped you decide between the X100VI or the X-E5. If you found it useful, drop me a like, let me know in the comments which one you would go for. And as always, if you want to see more Fujifilm content or tech content like this, don't forget to subscribe. Or, if you're interested in what I do in my daily life or how I'm decorating this wonderful room behind me, be sure to subscribe. I will see you in the next video. Bye!